Welcome to Temz Offgrid. Today we're going to go over a survival scenario camping trip for the Scouts. All right, next we got to do our taste test, but this is how everything came out looking. In this camping trip, they're going to have to use all of their Scout skills to make it through the weekend with minimal adult intervention. All right, we are building a filter for off-grid water filtering. The final bucket has charcoal. We're putting rocks in here so that the sand bucket isn't sitting right on the charcoal, so we have a little bit of a gap. And the first bucket has gravel in it. And then at the bottom we have cloth, and we're going to take the dirty bag of the platypus and we're going to capture that. What we're attempting to do is pre-filter the water from the pond so we don't have as much sediment and clay in there. All right. They'll be provided a map at the beginning of the trip, and on that map are many landmarks and the names of different roads and trails. They'll be provided clues and riddles all throughout the weekend that'll lead them to different caches. And different caches contain different things: water filtering, food. Backpack stove, flint and steel, because they are involved in a plane crash that has crashed in the side of a mountain. It's 1974. There's no GPS, there's no cell phones, there's no communications. They don't have any way to reach out to the outside world. By the end of this camping trip, they'll have to use signaling skills to set up signals to try to get overhead helicopters or planes that are trying to locate where they've crashed. All right, so again, the event begins. They have a map. The first riddle will lead them to the crash site because they're not deposited at the crash site. Scouts will be in pairs all over the 21-acre property, and they'll have a riddle that guides them to the crash site. Then all Scouts come together. The first event is going to be to triage the wounded. The most wounded need to be cared for first, etc. So when they get there, they won't even have the supplies that they need. They're going to have to read the first riddle that'll take them to the first cache that is going to be for first aid. So after they've made it, deciphered the riddle, they understand that it's for first aid, they've made it to that cache, they've got what they need, now they can triage the wounded. After that's done, we're going to split them up into two groups because there's a lot of them. They're not necessarily getting along together, is the scenario. Maybe even be real. We'll split them up into two teams at that point after triaging the wounded. Now they've got to go out and they've got to find the flint and steel. So they'll be provided a riddle that they have to solve, and that riddle is going to point them towards the flint and steel. There might even be a few cotton balls in there to help them get started. What's important now is think about the laws of three. Rules of three, laws of three. 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So we've done our first aid. Now we need to get fire. Let's imagine on this flight they were on their way to Philmont. So some of them do have their water bottle and some of their supplies with them. So we don't have to go find water immediately after doing the first aid. But wolves have already been sighted in the area. These wolves are going after the dead and those that are going to die and those that are living that cannot fend for themselves. So we got to get that fire started. That's why the second cache will be going after the fire starting materials to get their fires going. They'll also have a riddle that leads them to 2 different fire pits. So they got to solve where their fire pit is located. You just can't build a fire pit anywhere out here. You got to use established fire pits. So they'll lead to their fire pit. They'll do a riddle to the flint and steel cache, and they'll get that going. As darkness is falling, they'll be provided another riddle that's going to lead them to the emergency lighting that was on the plane. They don't have any flashlights. All they have is their fire. So they'll get led to the emergency lighting in that cache. That way they have a little bit more lighting around their camp, And because you notice we didn't talk about building a shelter, there's no time to build a shelter. They've got to fend off the wolves. They've got to get fires going to stay warm. And they're going to have to cowboy camp on this first night. There's going to be no tents. There's no time to build a shelter. They need to rest because tomorrow is going to be a huge day. All right, Saturday starts off with, I'm going to gather them up at HQ. I am going to feed them a fantastic breakfast burrito breakfast for them. I'll let them eat to their heart's content because they're going to need all that energy for the day. When they are done eating, the adventure continues. They'll have a riddle that's going to lead them to the water filters. So I've got a platypus, I have a second platypus coming. I got MSR Microworks, or Gravity Works, whatever that one was called, Microworks. But the pond water, if you've seen Negan Lake here, the lake water, has a lot of clay sediment. It is going to jam up the hollow fiber membranes in the platypus like nobody's business. They are going to have to pre-filter that water. How do we pre-filter water? Gravel, sand, charcoal. Where's the charcoal coming from? The fire they had last night. They're going to have to grind up some of that charcoal and create a rudimentary pre-filter to get a lot of that sediment out of that water. So when it goes through the platypus, you're not jamming it up and having to do a ton of back flushing. So now we've gotten through that scenario. They've mastered how to filter water. They're going to move on to their next challenge, which is building their shelter. And there's going to be a cache that leads them to the rope, because they're going to need rope for building the shelter. After that, we're going to start approaching lunchtime. A couple things that they're going to need at lunch. They're going to need food. And they're going to need some backpacking stoves, potentially. We could point them towards the fire pit and make them have to boil the water. We did that in the last survival challenge. This time I was going to make it a little bit more simpler because they just don't have enough experience with the backpacking stoves. So I was going to throw that into the mix. So it'll be two-phased on this next part. They got to find the food, which I came up with a great idea for the food. Underneath a fake rock, and if you watched yesterday's video, I go over what's in the contents of the ReadyWise emergency food supply. There's a reason why I didn't cook any of that food yet, because they're going to cook it and eat it, and I'm going to video some of the reactions. Alright, so you got the cache that they'll have to navigate to for the riddle for the food. You got a riddle for the backpacking stoves. After lunch, they're going to continue the shelter building. They have to build a shelter, each team, that fits the entire team. The whole team needs to be in there. These are large shelters. This isn't like the Alone Winter Survival Challenge we did a few months ago where each one of them individually had to build a shelter. Now I want to see a team shelter. Alright, so they'll continue that after lunch, and last phase is signaling. So they're going to be a riddle that takes them to the mirror, and I got a couple Mylar bags in here. These things are super crazy reflective. I think between the Mylar bags and the mirror, plus if they think about it, they can use a lot of debris, logs and things to etch out a SOS in the big open area up here around the amphitheater to make an SOS. Plus they got that. I think it's all going to work out. Now, in terms of safety and things like that, I have 4 staff members, 2 adult staff members, 2 youth staff members. That way we even have our own buddy system for each team, the 2 youth, 2 adults. We'll be navigating and keeping watch of everything at every point during this adventure. The water that they're going to filter through the platypus and through the rudimentary filter, that's not the only water out here. We recently put in the 2,500 gallon tank, and if you watch that video, it's pretty interesting, and then how I filled it using well water from home and transporting it out here. So I have 2,500 gallons of water out here, if something happens and people don't have enough water, they're not filtering water more effectively. We'll guide using the edge method to make sure they understand how to use the filter efficiently, how to back flush, which is very important, and how not to cross-contaminate the two backs. That's going to be real important. They've started so many fires with flint and steel. I don't have many concerns with that. I don't have many concerns with the first aid. We'll guide as much as we need to with the backpacking stoves and with the food, and I think they'll probably be pretty effective with the signaling. The cowboy camping on Friday night, you know, they got to stay close to that fire. And they're going to have to set up a watch rotation because you can't have a fire that's unattended. So they're going to have watches around the fire all Friday night. So this will be one of their first adventures where they've ever had to set up watch rotations. This is going to be interesting for them. And we're going to be kind of grading both teams as the weekend goes along and giving them pointers. I do believe we'll start the beginnings of an annual type of competition where I'm going to have to come up with more and more scenarios as time goes on. And I did want to show a close-up of the patch that we have. And in 1974, before there was all these communications, we had to go with TWA because that's one of the well-known airlines back then. Also film a little bit as I'm putting the caches out, but appreciate you. Hang with us till the end of this video. I think you're going to love it. All right, for our flint and steel cache, what better place than the amphitheater fire pit? But I'm putting it underneath one of these large rocks so it's not super obvious, and so they're not going to see it right off the bat. They're going to have to be looking for it. So you can't see it through the side. They're going to have to try. So, pretty cool. All right, I found this tree stump over here in Gray Squirrel's camping site. So I'm going to set that up and roll this stump over top of it and see if I can conceal it pretty good. All right, I think it came out pretty good. So that's the signaling cache over here in the Gray Squirrel campsite. So the water filters are going to be over here in the Narnia campsite. So they'll decipher that riddle that helps them understand they're looking for the water filter. And the riddle will also help them understand they're looking for Narnia campsite. They have to navigate a little above the campsite. And I threw these logs in here where you couldn't see it. But if you just poke your head over here, you'll see it. Hey, and to give the scouts credit, they're the ones that came up with the name for this campsite to be called Narnia. And it's because you're walking through these cedar trees and the area just kind of opens up after you walk through these cedar trees. So you can get multiple tents on this flat area that's like 100% in the shade. And then it's all the hardwood forest downhill from here. But a lot of the patrols, they like to camp here at Narnia due to the flat terrain. You don't have a lot of the big rocks on the ground. And it's got a lot of great shade over here. So we're standing at the intersection of Opossum Trail, or Possum Trail, and Mockernut Trail. The riddle will help them understand they're looking for the first aid kit, and that it'll direct them toward this intersection. And I'm looking at this big rock over here. Yeah, I'm just going to put it on the other side of that big rock because I don't want their first riddle to be, too hard and too difficult to find the objective or the object or the cache. So I'm just going to put it right behind this big rock. So they'll need to spread out at this intersection and look for the first aid kit. So there we have it. All right, we're going to move on to place the food cache and the lighting cache, emergency lighting cache. And of all places, the best location for the lighting cache is inside the dugout. So when I have some time later this summer, I'll get back to redoing the front of the dugout. This is how I left it when I didn't have any more time to work on it. But these big logs I'm going to put on the front, raise up the front, and do a little bit more work. But anyways, we got to go up in here and put the lighting cache in. So let's do it. If there's anything in here, don't kill me. Oh, look. Again, we're taking on water. So I may not make it to the very back. But I'll tell you what. The good thing about the dugout taking on water is it's also a natural cistern. The way for me to overcome this is we dig a trench that gets down to the clay level in front of the dugout, and we intercept this water before it comes through. Right here, we'll go below the clay layer. All right. But this is heavily filtered water by the time it makes it in here. So that's why you don't see too much sediment and things like that. But also I'm seeing daylight over there. Maybe we got rain coming in through this point of daylight. So anyways, we'll put the lighting cache right here, so they don't have to go too far. All right, there you have it. We're in the dugout. It's got water again, but hey, maybe they found this water and they're like, hey, we found a cleaner area to get water from. It'd be pretty smart to come here and get this water. They don't need to pre-filter it. And there's more than they can drink in the entire weekend. So let's hope they find this, because this is really going to help them. Let's see if even you can pick out where I've placed the food cache. No? Not yet? Maybe? Oh yeah. So maybe it looks a little different than the surrounding rocks, but I think with people just walking by, they're going to miss it. But there's your food cache over here off of Moffat King Loop. It's close to their privy over there, and it's close to the tent camping platform over there. We're now in the Old Goats campsite. We put the old goats up here at the top so the boys can be as loud as they want further on down the mountain. So under these leaves is the rope cache. So they're going to have a challenge on this one. And it is a 1,000-foot roll of 550 cord in the leaves. So good luck. All right, now we've made it to the root cellar garage. This is going to be our last cache. And you can see we have some water in here because we've hit the clay layer again. And it comes right out of the hillside. And the water runs across all the way through here when it's been raining pretty good. So for the root cellar garage cache, when I built these sides, I knew I needed to build sides that would hold back the dirt. And there it is. So those should be the backpacking stoves in here. Root cellar garage, a great place to park. Sure does feel good under here. Or build an nest if you're a bird. All right, we are building a filter for off-grid water filtering. The final bucket has charcoal. We're putting rocks in here so that the sand bucket isn't sitting right on the charcoal. So we have a little bit of a gap. And the first bucket has gravel in it. And then at the bottom we have cloth, and we're going to take the dirty bag of the platypus and we're going to capture that. What we're attempting to do is pre-filter the water from the pond so we don't have as much sediment and clay in there. All right, next we got to do our taste test, but this is how everything came out looking. We cooked the brown sugar and maple multigrain cereal, 2 things of creamy pasta and vegetables, cheesy macaroni, and Southwest beans. So I will load up a plate and give this a taste test, that is. All right, a cup less, so 4 cups, and I had to go high heat on here to boil off some of the, or steam off some of this water. So a cup less on the macaroni as well, and that'll do it. So I'm just letting this stuff simmer at this point.